Greetings, chess players, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Chris Torres with some help from my friends, the chess show where I present a video of my friends teaching their favorite chess lessons. Over the years, I've been lucky enough to have acquired a large number of friends through chess. In life, friends can help us by bringing new ideas to the table and adding diversity to our viewpoints. In chess, my chess friends have enriched me with games and motifs that I surely would have missed without knowing them. So it is now my pleasure to pass my friends' knowledge on to you in this show called Chris Torres with some help from my friends. In this episode, Jay Stallings joins us to share a Mikhail Tal game his father taught to him. Today's lesson demonstrates the principle of not capturing your opponent's queen's knight pawn with your queen early in the game. Coach Jay's lesson on this game, as passed down from his father to him, was transformative for my chess, and I think it will be for yours as well. Enjoy.
Here we go. So our first game is a classic. This is a fantastic game played by one of my favorite players in history, Mikhail Tal. Grandmaster Mikhail Tal was fun. He came on the scene very quickly when he was young. He won the Russian championship a couple years in a row. I think it was 1958 and 59. And then in 1960, he challenged Mikhail Botvinnik for the title of world's champion. And he beat Botvinnik, became world's champion, but Mikhail Tal always had health issues. And the next year, he was pretty sick when he lost the title back. 20 years later, though, Mikhail Tal was once again the second-ranked player in the world, 20 years after he was world's champion. So Mikhail Tal was a great player for a long time. And in this game, he is going to beat his opponent by following all the rules that myself and Coach Chris and pretty much every chess coach tells you to do. But there's one fun part to this that I really want to draw your attention to, and that's the theme of this lesson. Never take the queen's knight pawn with your queen. And the queen's knight pawn is the B pawn. When Coach Chris and I were growing up, we did notation a different way. So it was pawn to king 4, pawn to king 4, knight to king's bishop 3, and stuff like that. And we had to write all of that notation on stone because paper wasn't invented yet either. Okay, that part's not true. In any case, let's look at this game. This is Mikhail Tal against Tringov, and it was played in 1964. Tal is white, and Tringov is fianchettoing his kingside bishop, and that might be the highlight of the game for him. That's about all he does. That's good. So Tal is doing all the things we love to see. He has his king pawn pushed up, his queen pawn, and both knights have come towards the center. I mean, isn't this exactly what the coaches tell you to do, right? And so he develops a bishop, and I like where he put it, because a lot of times we automatically go right next to the pawn over here. But in this case, what he's trying to do is stop the e pawn from coming up. So he pins it with the bishop. And his opponent says, okay, yeah, I better bring my queen out. And Tal says, you want to take my b pawn, my queen's knight pawn with your queen. When you do, it might be a little bit inconvenient for me because my knight will be hanging. And so he prepares for this. He gets ready for this to give away this pawn by just stepping the queen forward 1 square. It guards the knight. Now, when the queen takes here, Mikhail Tal is happy to play rook to b1 for 3 main reasons. First of all, protects his rook. Now the knight is guarding his rook. Secondly, he picks up a tempo, or like a free move from the queen. The queen's got to take off. And third, he now has put his rook on a half-open file. Now, a completely open file doesn't have any pawns in it. A half-open file for you is one that doesn't have any of your own pawns in it. That's your half-open file. Your opponent could have a half-open file, like if this A pawn was off of the A file, then black would have a half-open A file. Now, here he's attacking the queen, and Mikhail Tal doesn't immediately go after the queen. He just completes his development. He's finishing up. He has one more thing to do. Think about it. What is that one more thing he needs to do? There it is. He castles. And I guess if we think about it, he still has to bring that kingside rook into the action. Look what he's done. This is just amazing. Okay, I'm going to stop here because I want to flip the board around. Have a look. Yuck. Look at the black side. The king is still in the center. The knights haven't moved, which means the rooks haven't moved. The queenside bishop hasn't moved. And the only piece that is out past black's third rank is the queen, which should not be out there. Now, the queen should be behind the pawns, should have the other pieces out first. So, yuck. Now, in the opening, we tell you to do all these things that Mikhail Tal has done. Moved up the center pawns, brought the knights towards the center, put the bishops on squares where they have a lot of scope, put rooks on open files, get castled, your queen takes a tiny step forward. But now, what do? Well, now we've made the middle game. And so, in the middle game, and by the way, Mikhail Tal's in the middle game, but Tringov is not. Tringov is still in the opening. So they're operating on two different guidelines here. But in the middle game, we start looking for ways that we can gain space, that we can put our pieces on stronger squares, that we can trade bad pieces for good ones, which means I'm not talking about trading your bishop for their queen. I mean trading your bishop that's blocked for their bishop that has a lot of scope, or trading off your knight that's just kind of sitting back there for their knight that's on a strong outpost square, that kind of thing. But also, we look for weaknesses in our opponent's position, something that's not protected, or it's only protected as many times as it's being attacked, and then you find a way to go after it, and you just go after that weakness. It's kind of like if there's a castle, and you want to break through the walls and get into the castle. That's what this is like. And so in the middle game, you have to break through that castle and get at your opponent's king. So here, Tal looks at the position and he says, okay, I finished the opening. Now I can do whatever I want to do my middle game ideas. And he sees this pawn on d6. And he says, I'll go for that. Now, he's not going to trade pawns for it because his opponent would not cooperate. His opponent would play d5 and then chase his bishop away and kind of lock up the center. We don't want to lock the center. We want to open the center. You always want to do that if you're castled and your opponent's not castled. You want to bust open the center and break through. So he goes after it with the bishop. So his bishop comes, attacks the d pawn, and his opponent pushes. But now, of course, we have an open d file. I remember when my dad showed me this game because my dad said to me, and my dad was Florida State champion back in the 60s. He says to me, okay, Mikhail Tal's bishop is under attack. Where do you think he moves it? And I studied the board for a few minutes, and I thought about some different ideas. And then he says, okay, I was tricking you. He doesn't move it. What does he do instead? And I really couldn't figure it out. Mikhail Tal was a great player, and maybe still I couldn't figure it out. But what he did was he plays his queen to d6. I like to call this the power position against a king, when the queen is a knight's move away. It's not a check, but it's as close as you can be without checking, and it really limits your opponent's king. In this case, the black king has no moves. But the fun part about this move was that he had a bishop hanging. The pawn was attacking it. Now, he also has a knight hanging. So he leaves the knight unprotected. And Tringov says, great, I'll take here. Now, by the way, if he takes the bishop, this is a crazy move, but true. Knight d5. And the knight's heading right into c7, and it would be checkmate, except that the queen can give her life for it. And so if the pawn takes, now that opens the e-file with the discovered check, and things are going to get really bad, and white's going to win quickly. So white won quickly anyway, spoiler alert. The queen captures here, and so now he threatens checkmate. Mikhail Tal makes a move that threatens a checkmate. His queen is in the power position, and you could think bishop g5, threatening mate at d8, good, but he does it a different way. He threatens it by rook e d1. Now, you may have heard me say rook e d1. That's opposed to rook b d1. Why doesn't he use the b rook? Well, a couple reasons. One of them is that he would like to have this rook off of the square where it's attacked by the queen, just in case whatever rook goes to d1 actually has to get in the action later on and do some move, and the knight's gone, then he's not going to get back rank checkmated. But the other thing is that rook on b1, it's on a half open file, and the rook on e1 is not. So picking which rook to move to a square, an open file, to protect a pawn, to attack opponent's piece, that's an important part of chess. So rook from e goes to d1, threatening an in-your-ear checkmate, queen d8. And so the knight comes to block it, but that's just what Tal needed. Tal didn't need much to get things going. And now with the bishop is being blocked from guarding the e6 square, Tal starts his sacrificing. Well, he's already given away a knight, but now check. Bringing the king out, check. Here comes the knight, check. This move wasn't possible before the knight was on d7. So that's why the rook to d1, to get the knight to block things off. But now the check, another check, and finally, checkmate. Notice, if he hadn't left that rook on the half-open file, the king would have an escape square. So even though it didn't look like that rook was going to play a part, leave your pieces on good squares and bring new pieces into the action to help out. Now, to me, a fantastic game, and really shows us how important it is to develop our pieces.
What a fantastic lesson from Jay Stallings and game from Mikhail Tal. To test your understanding on today's lesson, please go to dailychessmusings.com and take the quiz. If you enjoyed today's episode of Chris Torres with some help from my friends, please like and subscribe. Also, be sure to look in the description of this video for a link to Coach Jay's channel, Chess Hoots. Thanks for watching.